به نام خداوند جان و خرد که زین برتر اندیشه بر نگذرد. Today, in this video, I would like to talk about one of the most important and interesting uh, book, which is very important in Islamic studies. As the title of the book suggests, Beyond the Mosque, Diverse Space of Muslim Worship, by Rizwan Mawani, who is an Islamic Canadian scholar in terms of Islamic studies, and he has a kind of anthropological approach towards exploring his study. First, to know what is anthropology, study of religion. Anthropology of study of religion is looking through a certain lens that how, for example, the rituals or some religious related affairs are informed by the culture, by the culture of certain regions, or even we can say historically, or geographically, or culturally. So, in the book Beyond the Mosque, uh, it is not only focusing regarding the mosque itself or the rituals inside the mosque, but also in broader terms that how, for example, spaces of worships within Shia communities, within Sufi communities, or some other communities that he means transcending boundaries that he meant Zikris in Pakistan or Druzis who appeared during the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim. Uh, they have certain vision and they believe in uh, divine essence of Imam. But the question of who is Muslim and who is not Muslim is a undefined term, and he didn't define as well. Uh, it is difficult to say who is Muslim and who is not Muslim. But in his book, he's not only considering, he is briefly considering a theological debate among Muslims, but he is mainly looking through anthropological lens study of religion and at how different places of worship merge in the Islamic world over centuries. In his first chapter, he talks about the mosque. Of course, the first mosque was built by the Prophet, and but architecturally, uh, the mosque of the Prophet and also the other mosques in the Muslim world evolved over time. For example, the Shah Mosque in Isfahan, or what is called now as Imam Mosque, is so different architecturally from, for example, the Tuban Mosque, which built in Indonesia, for example, the mosques which are built in India, in China, in Africa, in Central Asia. So this shows that how, for example, Muslim worlds or the Islamic worlds has been expanded and the culture of certain regions impact on architecture, on the features of the mosques or any other places of worship in the Muslim world. He is going to explain a little bit uh, about five times prayer, or what is called salah or salat in Persian. He's explaining that they do with certain rituals very briefly that Muslims, of course, those kinds of rituals within Shia communities and within Sunni communities, they are different. This is because due to theological interpretation of Islam over Muslim history, and they develop their own interpretations, their own doctrines over their history, and that is different from what we can say diversity. There are diversity of interpretation within Muslim community. But after death of the Prophet, the main question is the question of authority. Who leads Muslim communities after the Prophet? That is the central point and the central aspect differences between Shia and Sunni Muslims. For Sunni Muslim, they believe that no one was appointed, so the companions of the Prophet they came and Saqifa bin Sahih were in Saqifa assembly place and Abu Bakr was chosen as the Caliph. However, For Shia communities, Prophet before his death, he appointed Ali ibn Abi Talib, his cousin and son-in-law, as Imam or the leader of Muslim community after him. So this is not only for Shia Muslims but also for Sunni Muslims. They believe in Caliphate of Imam Ali and they believe that he was the fourth Caliph and he is a very well respected companion of the Prophet among Sunni Muslims. Also, for Sufi communities, except Naqshbandiya, the other Sufi orders were tariqas. They also spiritually they connect themselves back to Imam Ali. But it is not the case of genealogically, but it is spiritually that they connect their own masters or peer or shaykh to Imam Ali. However, for Shia community, this is different and they follow the Imams who are genealogically uh, their origin go back to Imam Ali in Fatima. So in Shia communities, there are different places of worship which emerge beside the mosques. Although their rituals within the mosques are also different and their architecture, like any other Muslim communities, are mainly influenced by local cultures or regional cultures of the communities that they live. But for Shia, they have also places such as Husayniya, Taqiyya, Jamaat Khana. For example, Taqiyya or Husayniya, they are places of worship, where they are places that they mainly use for commemorating martyrdom of Imam Hussein, their third Imam, especially during the first month of the Hijrah, what is known as, which is a lunar year in Muslim uh, calendar, which is also quite common among Muslims, particularly in their medieval history. However, for Ismaili Muslims, over their histories, particularly during the Fatimid and afterwards, they had mosques and they were doing their rituals within the mosques, which were of course different to some extent from the other Muslim communities. But there is one Mawani did not mention about the detailed information regarding the Fatimids, but he is mentioning about, for example, Jamaat Khanas that Ismaili Muslims they go, and here he is mainly focusing on Nizari Ismailis, not on Mustali and any other Muslim, Ismaili uh, Muslims. For example, about Mustalis, he is not mentioning about the places of worship or their rituals. He's just mentioning that Ismail after death of Mustansir Billah or within the Fatimid uh, period. They were divided into two parts. One is Nizar Ismailis, they came in Iran, and the other is the Musaili Ismailis who remained in power and they ran to the caliphate, and of course they were divided into different parts, but mainly they are known as Borid in particularly in India, and they are also Ismailis, but they are different Ismailis. For Nizari Ismailis, they go to Jamathana for performing their daily dua, which is also prayer, but the certain rituals, which is of course different from other communities. These Jamaathanas are different architecturally from region to region, from Jamaatkhana even to Jamaatkhana. Also, he mentions about the Ismaili centers that there are 6 Ismaili centers around the world. And these Ismaili centers, they are also architecturally different within that cultural context. And each Jamaatkhana is a kind of ambassadorial place for a whole, where there is also a Jamaatkhana, but there are also places, for example, like social hall for understanding other Muslim um, during different communities rather than Ismailis, but he is not going into detailed information. For the Sufi communities, uh, they are different in the sense that they mainly focus on uh, inward orientation of the religion. But for the Ismailis, they focus on both of them. The Zahiri, what is known as the Zotric, but the Batini, which is the Sotric concepts were aspects of religion or Islam. So there is similarities between Ismailis and differences between there are differences and also similarities between Ismailis and Sufis, but he is not going to make that so distinctive. For the Sufi communities, they developed over centuries different places of worship. Uh, for example, in Iran, it is known as Khanqa. In Turkey, it's known as Takki, and some other parts of the world. For example, in Africa, it is called Zawiya, and each Sufi order have their own Shaykh, P or master, and they are coming from that. For example, for Mawlaviya Sufi order, as it is clear that it has been taken from Mawlavi or Maulana, who was one of the most outstanding Persian poets in Sufi. He has been quite influential in the Islamic world and in the world as well. This Mawlavi order, uh, they came after Maulana or Mawlavi, and so on and so forth. So it shows that how, for example, the names are even different, and there are different Sufi orders, and these places of worship of Sufis they are also architecturally different. For example, the Khanqa, which is in Iran, with, for example, with the Zawiya, which is in any other places, is architecturally different due to cultural and geographical and as well as historical differences. And there are different aspects which can influence. Over the last chapter of his book, he goes into somehow detailed information about uh, Zikris who are in Pakistan, particularly in Balochistan provinces and surrounding area, and also about their uses. For Zikris, they also like Sufis. They do Zikr, remembrance, or calling upon name of God. However, for Sufis, they are also doing uh, quite similar. For example, they do the Zikr or remembrance or remembering the name of God, and as well as reciting poetries, playing music, so performing religions rather than kind of traditional rituals. It seems that Zikris they were doing this quite the same, and he is not making the distinction that what is the difference between Sufis and Zikris, but he is saying that the Zikris they developed their own places of worship parallel to mosque, which is called, for example, Zikr Khana, where the place where they remember, of course, the place where they remember God. And these kind of rituals where worship can be done within the mosque or within any other places. Regarding uh, Rusis who appears during Al-Hakim, the Imam Caliph of Fatimid, as Fatimid they welcomed Neoplatonic philosophy and ancient Greek and other philosophers uh, uh, were quite well respected within the countries were within the circle of Muslim philosophers, and particularly the Fatimid philosophers or the Ismaili philosophers. So there is a kind of uh, philosophical aspects that can be seen within the Druzi communities, and also there are some Hellenic uh, Judaism and Christianity worldview that they are affected by. However, he is not uh, paying attention, or he didn't mention about the word masjid itself. What does masjid mean in Quran? What does masjid mean in hadith of the prophets or the tradition of the prophet? If you go and analyze, for example, about the word masjid itself, which is equivalent to the word mosque, a masjid has been taken from sajad or sajda, so it means a place where they can do prostration, they do sajda. For example, according to traditions of the prophets, a new year or the Quran itself, a new year that they uh, sajda or prostration, that is a masjid. In the other sense, we can say that the whole world is masjid. But what is meant today by masjid is, or by the mosque, is a certain place with certain such features where Muslims they go for purpose of performing prayer. That's called masjid. So maybe for other Sufi communities and Shia communities, they also believe the same, that their places of worship is like masjid. For example, for the Ismaili communities who live in uh, Arab countries, particularly Syria, they call their Jamaat Khanas as masjids.